marked for ID will become State's Exhibit 11. State's Exhibit 1C marked for ID will become State's Exhibit 12. And State's Exhibit 1U marked for ID will become State's Exhibit 13.
Okay. So, Detective, I'm going to talk about the autopsy and injuries now, and I'm going to try and sum it up, okay, instead of going through each and every one together, okay? Is it fair to say that there were 46 sharp force wounds in total on Ms. Garcia's body?
Sorry, you say 46?
46, sir, yes.
Yes.
Let's discuss the front.
Do you want to see any of these?
Is it,
You want to see any of these?
were there wounds to her face?
Yes.
Were there, multiple wounds to her face, including eyes, mouth, ears?
Yes.
Let's move down to the neck area. Did she have multiple wounds in her neck area?
Yes.
Gonna move further down. Did she have other injuries and wounds to the front of her chest, north of her belly button, between her belly button and her neck?
Yes.
Did the doctors discuss with you that the stab wounds to the front of the chest are likely the wounds that resulted in her death?
Yes.
And is that because they discussed that the wounds that were from the front, that those wounds cut off branches of the windpipe leading to her lungs, and that those wounds resulted in that much bleeding and her inability to breathe?
Yes.
Okay. Were there any other wounds to the front part of her body? Other areas of the front part of her body that had knife wounds?
Were you talking about the entire front or
So we talk face,
Face.
neck, chest, north of the belly button.
Okay. Okay.
Any other wounds that you recall on the front of her body?
She had defensive wounds on her hands.
Okay, so then let's talk about the hands. So when you witnessed the autopsy and you, in conversation, doctor, you noticed wounds on her hands, both hands?
I believe so, yes.
Other than those, anything else in the front?
Not on the front. We're going to then categorize the back area and the legs, right?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing else in the front.
Okay, so for those general areas, I think that's sufficient for that.
Yeah.
So were you able to see the back of her body?
Yes.
I'm going to start from the bottom this time. Were there any wounds on her legs from the knees down?
Knees down, I don't remember any.
Okay. Do you remember any wounds on her legs at all?
Yes.
Okay. What do you recall?
I remember two separate wounds that run along the inner thigh on each side of the leg and the general area of the femoral artery.
Okay. So 2 sharp force wounds on each upper side of the inside near the femoral.
Yes.
Other than that, were all the other wounds in the back of her body from, let's say, the lower back up to the head?
Lower, yes. She had on her back. She had numerous stab wounds. Yes.
So we'll get to that. So, but is it fair to say that according to what you witnessed, that there was very little blood left in her chest cavity or internal cavities when the autopsy began?
Objection, Your Honor. He's not a medical examiner.
And that really doesn't go to the specific issues that I'm interested in here.
Not
Okay. And that was the infliction of the wounds, and as you offered, the type of strength necessary to do that.
Okay, yes, sir. So were there numerous wounds in her back?
Yes,
Did you notice that those wounds went through skin?
yes,
Did they go through muscle?
yes,
Did they go through internal organs?
yes,
Were there also other sharp force wounds to the back of her neck?
yes,
And let's get to her head. Were there sharp force wounds in the back of her head?
yes, I believe so.
Okay. Did you witness the doctor remove a piece of metal from the back of Arena's skull?
Yes,
Okay. And did you witness the divot left in the back of her skull from that?
I saw when she removed it, and I impounded that little tip as evidence.
Okay. And you were just looking at State's Exhibit, thank you. State's Exhibit 10. Since we obviously don't have that piece of evidence with us, did it look like it was the size of the tip of the knife that's broken?
It was consistent.
Okay. 1 second, please. No further questions for Detective Laskitz.
Cross-examination.
So I want to talk about a little bit of your testimony relating to the still shot from the baby cam. First of all, have you seen is there footage? Is there baby cam footage? Baby cam footage.
Not to my knowledge, only stills.
Okay. Now, have you heard the unredacted 911 call?
I've heard the 911 call.
The unredacted 911 call.
I believe so.
Okay. Does the FBI have the unredacted 911 call?
Objection, relevance.
Judge, apparently the FBI has the either forensic dumping or the phone itself. That was his testimony. I'd like to know what other evidence is not in Hialeah Police Department's custody and control.
What does that have to do with the issues in this hearing?
Well, Judge, she was testifying as to premeditation or evidence that, this was something really planned out. And part of his testimony was that he, Derek, typed or searched X amount of words and searches on his phone. I want to know how he knows that those searches were conducted by Derek.
I guess we'll find that out in discovery now, but it's a little moment to me right now.
Okay.
As I've said to you guys about 20 times now, I want to focus on the conditions of his detention to determine if they violate his constitutional rights. Where the evidence is being forensically examined right now doesn't take me anywhere on that question.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome now.
In terms of the medical examination, do you know anything about depth of wounds?
The depth,
Yes, sir.
I was there when they were doing the autopsy, and I got to see when they actually pulled the skin back, and the doctor explained to me that it hit organs and organs and organs.
Do you have any specialized training to know depth of wounds? You yourself, without somebody else telling you.
I'm not a doctor, if that's what you're asking.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
Well,
I'm asking if you have any specialized training to know on your own, without another person telling you, the depth of a wound.
Well, visually, you could see if a wound or an injury goes through skin, and if it hits the organ, you can make an estimation. But other than visual,
Okay. Can you also visually identify the force needed to create certain wounds?
it depends if it strikes a bone or not.
And you could tell that visually, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you have any expertise to determine what's a defensive wound or offensive wound?
May I just inquire if I can go back Do you still need this, Ms. Riella, or can I go back to my table?
No, I do not. Thank you, Ms. Morales. Do you have the expertise to determine what is a defensive or offensive wound?
I have handled many homicides and or stabbings, and I am talking to you from experience that I know what a defensive wound is in a knife attack.
So that's yes, you do have that experience?
Well, it's experience on the job dealing with it many times. So I don't have the medical explanation, but I can tell you what's consistent with the defense wound.
Okay. Is one of the witnesses that you interviewed, Mr. Frank Ramos?
Frank Ramos, I interviewed him or dealt with him before. Initially, I don't think I interviewed him initially. I interviewed the defendant's father.
Now, have you met Mr. Ramos prior to this incident?
No.
Okay. And since the incident, how often do you speak?
Objection to relevance.
Judge, the detective testified that he received the still shot from Ramos. The detective also, if we recall, on the 22nd of November, took his personal cell phone to Mr. Ramos's home for a Zoom meeting. I think everybody remembers that, right?
Yeah,
I think he appeared on a cell phone.
His cell phone, correct.
For us, at your Honor's request,
Right.
he drove over there to do that.
When I asked the detective to drive over and find him so we could take testimony from him as to whether he agreed to entering his apartment for inspection.
Okay.
Okay. And where are we going with this?
Have you relayed any of the findings to Mr. Ramos?
Judge, I have an objection pending.
Now we're on a new question.
Right.
Yes.
All right, let me hear your question then.
Yes, Judge. I don't want to talk about the cell phone anymore. He took his cell phone, Your Honor asked, he said yes. The evidence, the investigation, the course of the investigation. Have you revealed details to Mr. Ramos about it?
absolutely not.
So you never told Mr. Ramos that there were
Objection to
46
relevance.
evidence?
I'm sorry. What would be the relevance of that? I'll allow you to respond to her objection.
I'd like to know, Your Honor, any type of bias or any type of, why would Mr. Ramos know that there were X amount of
No, we
stabbings?
don't have anything in this record which would indicate that Mr. Ramos knows there were X amount of stabbings. Move on to your next question, yeah.
Do you know if Mr. Ramos would know what the searches on the phone?
Objection to relevance.
I mean,
For this hearing, all of this is irrelevant.
I don't understand. Next question, please.
I think I'm done. Give me one moment, Your Honor. Oh, okay. I think I'm done. Thank you, Detective.
Thank you.
Any redirect?
Yes, sir, thank you.
One word.
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Mr. Lewis.
But in the future, don't hesitate to bring her notes about questions that you think she might want to ask during examination. Is there anything else you have of this witness that you want to ask of this witness, Mr. Ram?
Yes.
Okay, let's get it done.
Judge, I can streamline it a lot faster if I just ask the questions because those are my notes. That's why I know I understand your policy, Judge. Shouldn't take long. I'd have to tell her what my notes mean.
It's really deciphering his handwriting. When you were interviewing Derek, did you have your gun?
Objection to relevance.
Okay, ma'am, a lot of these things that you're raising here, Mr. Lewis, are things that I would hear ordinarily if you were arguing that his confession or his statements were not voluntary or constitutionally taken, but I'm really much more interested in focusing on the circumstances of his detention. So I'm thinking this goes a bit far afield. I wanted to give you guys a full opportunity to put as much evidence as you thought was relevant into the record. This is not. It's a standard.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome, ma'am. Thank you very much. Any redirect?
Yes, thank you,
That's
sir.
not a
be
request
brief.
that you redirect. It's just an...
I'll be very brief, Judge. I know it's late. Trying to be as succinct as possible. Do 13-year-olds have driver's licenses with their addresses on them?
No.
Was the phone that you impounded belonging to Mr. Rosa a smartphone?
I believe it was, yes.
Are numbers saved in that?
Yes.
In your experience with adults, are there often times when somebody doesn't know a phone number because they save them? They don't know it by heart.
Yes.
At any point when you were speaking with Mr. Rosa and he didn't understand something, did you explain it?
Yes.
And did he seem to you to understand what you explained?
Yes.
Just 1 second. No further questions.
Thank you very much, Detective.
Thank
Judge,
you.
can I ask one question?
Um,
Regarding that explanation, I have one question.
I'm sorry, ma'am. What's your question?
My question is, did you explain anything to Derek outside of what we viewed here, outside of this interview?
No.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.